Hey everybody, John St. Baptiste here. Uh, this week is going to be a little different, and it's very funny that the last post was awkward because Amy cannot make it tonight. Um, she had some stuff come up, and she's not going to be able to make it. So I am going to be doing my very first solo live stream. Um, I appreciate everyone who showed up. And hopefully we'll get a few more people in here. I am not used to not having somebody save my ass all evening, so this is going to be totally new and different, but we'll see how well it works out. I see we have a few people in here right now. Take these off. Win Heron and Brown Holler, the spanner, the one spanner that rules them all. So welcome. Hopefully we'll get a few more people in here. So since I don't have anybody to directly speak to, bounce some questions off me if you have any. Otherwise, we'll just go over the episode. How's everybody doing today? Well, I am doing pretty well. It's my day off, and I'm excited to talk about this really good episode. So let's see. We start off. We have Gabriel and Sandalphon going into the bookshop that Azraphile owns. And it's so funny to me how, you have Haster and Leaguer, and then you have Gabriel and Sandalphile, and none of them understand this world that they're trying to affect. So it's kind of ironic. They walk into the shop and they're like, "Oh, we're here to buy pornography," and then Gabriel's like, "Oh, human beings are so simple," and it's like, "No, you're the one who is standing out like a sore thumb," which I thought was terribly funny. And then for anybody who is a reader, when they walk into the back room and Sandalphile is like, "Oh, I smell something evil and sinful," and so forth. And Azraphile's like, "Oh, that must be the Jeffrey Archer books," which, if you're a literary person, is absolutely hilarious. Hi, Bear Island Josh. Good to see you here. Like I said, Amy couldn't make it tonight, so I am running this on my own. Please be kind to me. This is my first solo podcast or live stream. I always get those things confused. So they go back, and it's funny because Gabriel's like, the divine plan's going is plan. He doesn't know shit. He doesn't know shit, and it's so funny that these divine and demonic characters who are supposed to be affecting the world don't even understand anything about it. Like I think the dichotomy that's going on there is brilliant. It does go back to something we were talking about last week, where the during the Cold War, the people who were in power really had no idea what was going on, and Azraphile and Crawley have more in common with each other than they do with the people who they report to. I mean, one might be an angel and one might be a demon, but they have far more in common with each other than they do with the people they report to. Yes, Beryl and Josh, I do love how they said, "Oh, you know how we humans are," and I love the fact that they call out because this is not something that's in the apocrypha, as far as I know. I will have to reread. Most of my biblical texts are actually in paper form, so it would literally require rereading. It's not like a search engine type thing. But I don't believe Sandophile is a named angel anywhere, but I love the fact that they made him and his extremely uh, abrasive character, the angel who destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. I just thought that was terribly funny. Julianne, hey, what's up? It's good to see you. Julianne89, by the way, check out her stuff. She does amazing artwork. She does all the thumbnails for the music stuff on my channel, and it's freaking awesome. But going back to the episode, so yeah, so Gabriel's here, who is played so well, and he's talking about the divine plan, and the four horsemen are called out, and something you heard from him in the last episode, and you're hearing from him in this one, is when Azraphile asks, who summons the four horsemen? He's like, not my department. It's a really funny take. Yeah, it's Sendophone. Did I pronounce it incorrectly, Braun? If so, I apologize. Yes, it's Sandophone. I think I might have said Sendophile. Yes, Julianne, I love John Hammer too. He or John Hamm. He's so good at playing that specific type of character. It's awesome. And then Sendophone says, "Oh, you can't have a war without war." And Gabriel just thinks this is brilliant. It's so funny. Like that opening scene is just so hilarious. And then we move to the mirror that Crawley is like, because last week we saw they lost the Antichrist. Sorry, that's kind of a big deal. They lost the Antichrist. So you have the mirror of that. Crawley walks into his house and he turns on the telly, and he's watching some daytime TV type of thing, and yes, Julianne, I did love that line. I want to purchase one of your material objects. Like, yeah, it's that whole just no concept, no freaking idea, and I love how well it's portrayed. But so he's watching the telly, and it's like Good Morning America or whatever the equivalent would be over in England. I forget the name of the show. If anybody remembers, let me know. But and then the host and the guest turn into Haster and Leaguer, and it's essentially the same conversation, just from their perspective and their point of view, and and Haster gets up in Crowley's face about everything, and he's like, "I don't trust you," which is so ironic. I mean, these demons we're talking about, they aren't supposed to trust each other. They aren't supposed to trust anybody, and because they are untrustworthy themselves. And I just, yes, Sam and Pam. Thank you, Julianne. I just found it so hilarious. And then Crowley turns the TV off, and they had been speaking about how this is what we've been going for since we fell. And he's like, I didn't fall. I just hung out with the wrong people. Which I think is great. It's a great homage to the book for anybody who's read the book. Oh, welcome, Barbara. Yeah, please just lurk while you drive. Don't pay too much attention to your phone, because that ends up getting people hurt pretty badly most of the time. Sorry, if I'm waffling, it's because I don't have anybody to talk to here. Amy had some serious stuff going on tonight, so she wasn't able to make it. Everybody send out your love to Amy, though. She should be back next week, and I think Ben will be with her again too, which will be kind of cool. You know, it's going to be good times, because then you won't just have to listen to me talk. So then we move on to No Man's Land in Africa and the Summoner. And I love the way this character's played. Once again, it's a great homage to the book. He's so politely British, and he's in the middle of this desert, walking into a tent with all these people who are basically in a ceasefire or whatever, and he's very polite. Oh, lovely place you have here. I always wanted to go here on a holiday. I thought it was very funny how polite he is, and it plays back to this whole concept that I think Terry and Neil had from the beginning of British politeness and so forth, which I thought was kind of awesome. And he has a package to deliver to this lovely red-haired woman. I kind of fell in love for a second, I got to admit. Kind of fell in love for a second. Julianne says the UPS man looks like Bubba Husky. I'm not sure about that. I've never seen Bubba Husky, like, physically. I will be meeting him at con, though, which, by the way, if you enjoy the show and enjoy this channel, please share this out, share my stuff out, because we need to get some subs in here, because if I hit 250, I will cosplay Crawley. Not only will I do it at con, I'll also do it on my show. So you get to see me with, like, dyed red hair, which is actually closer to my real hair color. And none of this. So just something you might enjoy. But so, yeah, war comes in, and it's funny that if you've read the book, the newspaper that she works for is basically the equivalent of the Weekly World News, which I don't think they make anymore, but it was publication, for those of you who don't live in the States. It was like the tabloid to end all tabloids. Like, it wasn't like Scandal and this. It was like Bigfoot and like all this crazy shit. So she comes in, and the minute she's there, the tension rises. These people are about to sign a peace treaty, and they get into a fight over who signed a piece of paper first, which is just great. Like, her basic presence makes people want to fight. And so that happens, and the package is delivered, and she opens it, and it's a sword. Now, if anybody is not familiar with the biblical references, war wields a red sword, and the sword actually is red. The blade isn't, but the hilt is. I don't know if anybody picked up on that, but that's the embodiment of war from the revelation of the apocalypse to St. John the Divine of Patmos, which we will talk about in a little while. Imagination realm, hello. So she gets her sword, and she's like, sorry guys, gotta bail, which is just great. And then one person and then another, everybody's pulling out guns. Like, I'm a gun person. I own quite a few of them, but I try to avoid situations like this, and I do kind of think it's funny that nobody got like searched before they all came into that tent, so everybody was armed. And yes, Barry and Josh, you're right. It was a gladius, which is a Roman type of sword, which you use for piercing, not slashing. They're actually just about that long, and it was used with shield. I could go into military history stuff for like ever, but won't, because I don't want to bore you all and make you all go away. So then we have the credits, which we talked about a bit last week. The credits are absolutely done brilliantly. I love how the opening credit scene is done with the illustrations and everything. And then we work into 1656. And I was so looking forward to this scene. So looking forward to this. Yeah, it's got to be like one of the top 5 things I was really excited about seeing actually put on screen when I found out they were making a television show of this, because I've read this book quite a number of times. And so Agnes Nutter, 50 pounds of gunpowder and 30 pounds of roofing nails. You've got to love that. And she knows they're coming to burn her, and she even calls them out, and she's like, hey, you're late. Or you're tardy. Yeah, Julianne, I agree. I love that she left the letter for the milkman, especially that she ends it with, like, give my regards to your wife. And this scene shows so much about human nature. Like, for one thing, there's the aspect that she's like, oh, she runs every morning, and, she's talking about how to eat a healthy diet, which was way ahead of the time, 300 some odd years ago. But also the fact that, like, all of these people are identifying her as a witch because she did something nice for them. Like, she cured my son of the pox, and and it's just hilarious. And the acupuncture reference was pretty funny too. But it's just a hilarious take on human nature, like mob mentality of people that she's done all these great things for them, and they just, oh yeah, well, this witch finder comes in, so that must mean she's a witch, and that means she needs to get burned at the stake. But could she helped your sick kid out? Like, seriously? It drives me batty. But well, in the real world, it drives me batty. Reading or watching this, it actually makes me laugh my ass off, because that really is the way people act. So yeah, so she's got her 50 pounds and 30 pounds, and yeah, and she's waiting, and then she marches to her own death. And Witchfinder General, thou shalt not commit adultery. This is most irregular. And then it's great because she's like, oh, come here. Come here. I want you to witness the last burning of a witch in England. Closer, closer. Like, I was just so looking forward to seeing this scene play out on the telly, and I was so satisfied with the reaction, with the outcome. I think it was done really, really well, and I just really loved it. And then her daughter and her son-in-law found the book, and its predictions. And God says in a moment that is the only prophetic book that's ever been completely 100% accurate, ever written. But, like all prophecies, you have to interpret and understand them. As most Greek tragedy is people misunderstand. Like if you get into Greek tragedies, is people misunderstanding the messages that prophets give them. But I love that they brought from the original book the whole apple thing. The apple you can't eat. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it was yeah, it's and then we flip over to Anathema with her mom when she's just a wee little thing, and she's like, that doesn't make any sense. And her mom's like, in 1980, my mother bought 5,000 shares of Apple, and that's worth $40 million now. Like I think that I found that whole thing quite amusing. If any of you have ever read the book, there are a lot of like really humorous predictions that are in there. I'm only on the second episode, so I don't know how many of those they throw in there, but I'm really hoping that they do have Don't Buy Betamax, because that's one of the most funny predictions. And I'm sorry, I'm giving book spoilers there for anybody. By the way, this is spoiler free, so if you've not binged this or you've not read the book, we're trying to keep it so that you can enjoy it episode by episode the way we are. Yeah, Braun, I really do like how they gave Anathema a bit more backstory. She doesn't seem so Deus Ex Machina. I think it works out pretty well. Oh, hi Daisy. Good to see you. So then we move to Newton Pulsifer, who loves technology, and anything he touches that's remotely technological, he shuts everything down. I think that's absolutely hilarious. So he's a little boy, and oh mom, I'm just fixing the computer. And then all he did was like replace the plug and plug it in, and it shuts down the entire power for like at least the city block. I'm not sure how much, but it's pretty hilarious. And then and I love how this was the same day that Anathema is learning about the prophecies or memorizing them with her mom, and Newt shuts down half of London's electricity or something like that. But that's the day the Antichrist was born, and and his mom's like, "Oh, don't worry, it's not the end of the world." The wordplay that goes into this show, that went into this book, is just so brilliant. I love good wordplay. PJ, hey, how are you? I haven't seen you in forever, miss. It's good to see you. Um, so uh, then we flash to Newt as an adult, and he's going out for his first job. And he gets in his car named Dick Turpin, which does play into the story a bit later. And we will see that. I think I would imagine in the show, if they left it in there, then it's going to show up in the show. For those of you who don't know, like I said, like Amy and I are not binging this. We are literally watching it one episode a week. And she should be back next week. Sorry she couldn't make it this week. And you just get to hear me waffle for like an hour. My apologies. I do my best. But so, you know, his mom's like, oh, hey, you know, young man going out into the world and so forth. And he gets into his car and he drives off and goes to his first job. And he knows that technology just doesn't agree with him. And he's like, is there any way you could just like print this out and I could do it all on paper or something like that? Nope. And then he hits that return button while they're talking about the training initiative retreat. And once again, all the power goes out. It's freaking hilarious. We go back to Anathema. And she is, you know, trying to figure out where the Antichrist is. She's using dowsing rods, and they aren't really working because she is right where he is. I think it's so funny that so many characters in these books are looking for Adam, and they can't find him because they're like literally right on top of him. I think it's a hilarious dynamic. You know, it's a whole comedy of errors type of thing. But then you've got oh no, sorry, that seems a bit later. My notes are a little sporadic. This is when Anathema's in the airport, the adult Anathema, who, by the way, is pretty attractive young lady, gotta say. Yeah. But I love how she walks up to the attendant at the airport. And, you know, she's, well, what do you have to claim? Why are you here? And she's like, you know, well, I'm going to use my powers to block the Antichrist and so on and so forth. And the woman's like, what? And she's like, vacation. I just found very hilarious. And then you have Newton after he got canned. Like, how the hell do you sack somebody just because the power shuts off? But okay, whatever. I just, that was a little weird to me anyway. And he comes across Sergeant Witchfinder Chadwick, one of my favorite fictional characters of all time, just because he's so ridiculous. And you know, Shadwell's got a sign, and he's like, "Hey, I don't have a job," and he so he gets into this conversation with him, and it's so funny because you see like Shadwell's like kind of like I think he believes in what he's saying and all this and so forth, but like he pulls that sketchy thing at the hot dog stand where he's like, "Oh hey, you know, pull out your money." It's just funny, And the dynamic between him and Newton's so neat and quiet and so forth. And I love it. And then he's like, oh well, you he kind of co-opts him into becoming a witch finder, like without him even knowing until what he, for example, what he's signing until he signs it. And do you have all your own teeth? How many nipples do you have? I love that. I love the nipple thing. Interesting side story. There was someone I dated years ago who actually had a third. They do exist. And there was a girl who I went to high school with who had no nipples. She had Barbie boobs. Cincinnati's just full of freaks. Yeah, Josh, I've never been through airport customs, but just in general, like anything involving airports, I absolutely hate and avoid. Um, and Julianne, that's great. That's going to be your questions when you meet people. Do you have your own teeth? How many nipples do you have? Like, that'd be a great way to introduce yourself to somebody. Well, that's awesome. Oh, sorry guys if I'm waffling. Like I said, this is the first time I've ever done a live stream all by myself, so I'm doing my best. I'm not quite as charismatic as some of the people who pull this off every week. We go back to Crawley's apartment and the plant scene. And this was another scene that I really wanted to see done on the screen because I just think it's so hilarious. Like, as somebody who has plants all over their house, like, if there aren't books, there are plants. And I am far kinder to my plants than Crawley is, but this is a scene straight out of the book, and it's just so hilarious because he's like, "Oh, is that a spot I see?" And he takes it. Say goodbye to your friend. This is gonna hurt you more than it hurts me. I love it, and then you hear the, I guess it's garbage disposal or something like that. He walks back with the empty pot, and the entire time the plants are just shuddering, because God, as the narrator, is talking about how back in the 70s he heard that talking to plants was good for them, but he didn't put the fear of God in them. He put the fear of crawling in them. Like just brilliant writing. And then, so they show Crowley in his natural environment, and then they go to Aziraphale in his natural environment. They're in the bookstore. And he answers the phone, which I think is great because somebody's calling looking for a certain book that would be the nice and accurate prophecies of Agnes Nutter. And he's like, nobody's got a copy of this. And agreed, Beryl and Josh. In his defense, the plant clearly couldn't cut it. Just wasn't good enough. It would have always been the weakest link. So you have a Aziraphale in the store, and then he's, oh well, there's no need to use that kind of language. Which I love how the actors in this show really portray the characters. And I love how the show, I think, is accessible to somebody who's never read the book. I would like to hope so, because as somebody who's read the book, I think it does it like quite good justice. So we're about halfway through the episode. Does anybody have any questions, thoughts, comments, ideas? Oh, Heron, you think it's a blender that he put it in? Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, Josh, it's easy to follow. It it does it so well, and I think the delivery is very similar to the way it was originally written. Yeah, Braun, that's what I thought. It was like a sink garbage disposal. Oh, and Julianne hasn't read it, and she's enjoying it. And I understand a lot of people have binged it. I want to after this episode. Actually, after this episode, I'm going to my mate's house because we're watching the Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. But probably later tonight, I will definitely be watching episode 3 because I've been wanting to for a week now. But yeah, we do want to see that. F the Bruins. Actually, for anyone who's not in America, which I think is like over half of the people here, anyone who's not in America or Canada, the Blue Jackets' big rival is the St. Louis Blues. But I actually want them to win tonight just because I hate teams from Boston. I really do. I'm sorry. That's a horrible bias I have. Just the way I am. I really want the Blues to win tonight. Like, that feels dirty in my mouth to say, but I do. I really do. Did I say funner, Julianne? Okay. Oh, I might have said funner. Hey, you have to love those like awful words that you're not supposed to use, but every once in a while you drop them. Okay, so does anybody have any questions thus far about the episode? Or any thoughts, ideas, anything like that? I'll give you a moment or two to because for some reason my chat is on delay. Okay, nope. Cool. So we come up to Newton going to ring the buzzer at Madame Tracy's house. Not quite what he's expecting. She only tells fortunes she tells fortunes regularly. She does other things on Thursdays, and it happens to be a Thursday. Thursday before the end of the world, by the way. And he's like, I'm responding to the advert, and we find out very quickly, yet subtly, that she's also a call person. And her dialogue here is just brilliant. I don't believe I wrote down the actress's name, but I thought it was brilliant. I thought she played it brilliantly, like, because she's this woman who's like my age or maybe a bit older, and this young man shows up at the door, and she's like, "Oh yeah, well, one of my regulars canceled," and she's like, I don't do anything kinky without working out the arrangements ahead of time. My knees aren't what they used to be. Love that reference. I'd be fine watching this with a young child just because I think it's kind of like some jokes that kids miss. Like if you watch Looney Tunes as an adult, there are things that you never got as a kid that you watch it as an adult and you're like, oh my gosh, how did they get away with that? Especially during like the McCarthy scare and all that, like because it was cartoon. There were cartoons that they put on at the beginning of the movie. They were able to get away with, especially Chuck Jones. I mean, able to get away with so much that you couldn't if it were live action, which I think is brilliant. And yeah, no, actually, Julianne, it's not 15 minutes; it's 40. I think she said 45 minutes to get into her leather outfit and so forth. Hey, make a buck where you can. Call girl, dominatrix, fortune teller, and then you rent out your room upstairs to like this crazy dude. It's so great when she brings him upstairs, when she brings Newton upstairs, and then Shadwell's like, "Bugger off, Jezebel," or I can't remember his exact words, but he calls her Jezebel and all that. I just thought it was hilarious because it's like, dude, this is your landlady. But she just lets him get away with it. We'll see if that goes anywhere. And so he walks into Shadwell's apartment. The place is just absolute chaos. Pops open the fridge and he's like, but he remembers that Shadwell takes 9 sugars with his tea. Like, okay, my tea, like, people tell me that I drink tea like a little kid because I take it with milk and 3. Dude, 9 sugars. That's like, how do his teeth look that good? That's what I want to know. Like, he has some pretty good teeth for somebody who takes his tea with 9 sugars. I mean, unless he's brushing them all the time. Oh, Julianne thinks Shadwell's a tit. Yeah, he is, but you kind of gotta love him. I love his character just because he's so ridiculous. He's such a ridiculous exaggeration of somebody. And I'm not going to sit here and psychoanalyze him and talk about how the Witchfinders is pretty much the only thing he has because he's such a curmudgeonous asshole that being a part of this like kind of order is and by the way, that plays in a bit more in the story later. So we switch over from here. Yeah. Oh, wait. So, he'd asked Newton to bring scissors, and Newton thinks it's for killing witches with, and he's like, "No, it's get ready to read. We're going to clip out things from the paper." Because that's what the Witchfinder generals or the Witchfinders have come to is they read the newspaper and clip out things about weird happenings and then investigate them. Talk about a fall from grace. Well, he talked about how the Witchfinder general back in the 17th century had been able to walk into a town and declare and earn 9 pence for every witch that he found. And he did. He found those witches. Well, hey, if you're getting paid, I'm sure you're going to find them. But we go back, and Azraphile calls Crawley. And he's like, hey, we could find this kid, I think. I have an idea. And then we show Crawley in his amazing, beautiful, oh my gosh, I want one, vintage Bentley. Gosh, the car's so beautiful. Like, I kind of fell in love with it a little bit. Oh, yeah. let's be honest. Yeah, it's a beautiful freaking car. And he's doing 90 in a residential zone, which is absolutely hilarious. 90 for you, Braun and Win Heron. I think that would be like, it's like 140 km. So yeah, driving pretty fast through like town. And my personal favorite scene of this episode, he's like, "Oh, let's listen to some music." And he's like, "What's a Velvet Underground?" And Crowley's like, "You wouldn't like it." He's like, "Oh, bebop." I absolutely. Okay, Braun is it's 1.6, so that'd be like, yeah, like 140. I think that but I'm sorry, I can't stop laughing. I just I love that. A, Crowley knows that Azraphile would not like the Velvet Underground, and B, Azraphile's assumption is, oh, it's something I wouldn't like. It's bebop, which comes into the episode later. Uh, so then we move to the kids, and you finally get to actually properly meet these children who hang out with Destroyer of Worlds, Emperor of Chaos, Adam. And you have Wensleydale, who his parents don't even call him by his name, they just call him Youngster. And he is slated to eventually go into chartered accounting. It's just something you know that's going to happen because of his type and personality. Hold on one moment, folks. I'm going to be right back. I have to turn a light on because it's getting kind of dark in here, and I just realized that there is none on. So I'll be right back. There we go. A bit better. And you meet Pepper, whose real name is Pippin Galadriel Moonchild, which I think is funny as shit. Especially if you follow this channel pretty regularly. We recently did Murder Mysteries by Neil Gaiman, and there's a reference that he uses when he says, there's this woman named Tinkerbell and her daughter's named Susan, and she's like, yeah, people named Tinkerbell name their kids Susan. Because that's like, yeah. But Pippin Galadriel Moonchild, I don't know if everybody got the Tolkien references. I did, but that's also because I have an entire bookcase full of Tolkien books. By the way, all of you, thank you for putting up with me talking about myself once again. I really appreciate it. Oh, and Brown Holler says it's proper daylight there. Yeah, because you're like way in the future, aren't you? It's like 8 in the morning there or something like that. So, and then we meet Brian. He's grimy and supportive. Every gang needs a Brian. I love the, well, once again, and I will probably go to this ad nauseum, but I love the way that they took and made God the narrator, since the book is written in third person omniscient. That's the best way to do it on a television show. Is just make God the narrator, because she knows everything. Let's see, meet the characters, and then we flash to Anathema, and she's dowsing. This is the dowsing scene that I was talking about. And then they flash back to the kids, and they talk about how she gets a witch newspaper, and she's a witch. And then these kids get this inspiration to have their game that they're going to play is the Spanish Inquisition, which is very disturbing. But when you think about it, like, little kids play very disturbing games. Like, think back to some of the stuff that you did when you were a kid. It's some very disturbing stuff. PJ, yeah, time to move on. What do I need to move on from? And so they start talking about the Spanish Inquisition, and they make a game out of it, which we'll get back into in a wee bit when we talk about Anathema. But then this is very important to the entirety of the story. We get back to Crawley and Azraphale riding in Crawley's car, and they're going to Lower Tadfield, and Azraphale says, does this look familiar? And he's like, yeah, there's an airbase near here. This is where the baby was born. And then Crawley explains like how they pulled off the whole baby swap thing was because he's like, American diplomats don't just live in villages. We had to get it so they were there. So we made the medical facility shut down at the airbase, and then he had to go to the convent, which was also a hospital, where the Shattering Order of St. Beryl was. And then Azraphale goes into his whole speech, which actually comes into play later, about how evil creates the seeds of its own destructions in its plans, which I always thought it's something that's so trope you see so often in books and in telly and in movies and things like that, but it goes into that, and there's actually a payoff for it, and the payoff is pretty good. It's coming here in a little bit. Then we flash back to the kids, and they're torturing Wensleydale with his on the tire swing, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. Because it's just showing kids being kids, and I love that, like kids just being kids and having fun, and they don't get what they're doing. They're just trying to have fun doing it, and they run into Anathema, which is awesome because she is looking for Adam. She doesn't know Adam's the Antichrist, but she's looking for Adam. And she's standing right there next to him, and hey, kid, and just totally misses it. Actually, Crawley and Azraphale have that conversation about water rolling off a duck's back, but Crawley can't remember what water rolls off of until later. But there's this whole thing that when anyone's around Adam, he's camouflaged. They actually talk about this in a little bit. I'm sorry, I keep jumping ahead of myself, but so while they're riding through that area, and once they get to the hospital, Azrael's like, I feel love. And Crowley's like, what the hell do you mean? And he's like, well, you know how you go into a place and you're like, oh, this is spooky? Well, it's kind of the same thing, but it's feel love. And Crowley's like, I don't feel spooky. I like spooky. It's what I do. Oh, hi, Johnny. Um, so they go there, and yes, the paintball training exercise, which is funny because it goes back to the company that Newton worked at for, I guess, a couple hours or whatever. And they're doing their training exercise because we've moved on for PowerPoints, and now we're doing leadership building and group teamwork and things like that. And it's playing paintball and shooting all your coworkers, which, nope, I've never wanted to do that. Nope, never. Not once, not in the slightest. Never wanted to shoot any of my coworkers. Mm-mm. Okay, so I'm full of shit there. But, so it's this team building exercise. And they've got the paintballs, and Azrael and Probably walk in and get shot, and it's paint. And I love it. Shows so much about the character themselves. Azrael's like, they ruined my coat, and Probably's like, oh, well, you can miracle it away. And he's like, yeah, but I know. But then Crawley miracles it away, and it's just fine. Like it's just really funny. Plus the fact that Crawley's just like, rules, whatever, you know. I think it shows so much about the two characters' identities, and I really like that. And then yes, Julianne, I'm just about to get into that. But first, I have to. So they realize it's a paintball gun. Oh, first we get to see Crawley be what Crawley can do, which is show. I don't know if it's his true nature or if it's just like scare the shit out of some human being or whatever. But you have that second. It's like literally a second or two when his his nature comes out, and the guy who had the gun, who's like winching at them because they didn't die in a little paintball war, is just like terrified, so terrified that he faints. And then they pick up the gun, and Azrael's looking it over. Bye, PJ. Hi, Mackenzie. Azrael's looking it over. He's like, this is a real gun. And then Crowley's like, oh, how do you know so much about guns? And he's like, oh, well, guns are fine for our side. They add weight to a moral argument as long as the people holding them are good, which I am not going to go into a political diatribe. Any of you who follow my channel, any of you who know me, any of you who follow live streams I'm on, I'm a huge weapons advocate, but I don't cram it down anybody's throat or anything like that. That's just me. But it's really funny that there are. Yes, Johnny, guns are heavy, but it's really funny that there's this whole argument that Azrael, and he doesn't even sound like he believes it when he says, "Oh, they had way too immoral argument," and then they go in the building, and all of a sudden, Crowley decides to miracle again and turn all those paintball guns into real guns, and Azrael's like, "Oh my gosh, you turn them into real guns." And he's like, "Yeah, well, that's what they wanted. They wanted to shoot each other." I added weight to their moral argument, which I thought was just absolutely hilarious scene. And oh, hi, Peter Griffin. Thank you for stopping by. It's good to see you, man. We have a lot of new faces in here. I've said this before for anybody who's been here for a while today. Amy wasn't able to make it, so I have to do this on my own. So thank you for bearing with me doing my first solo live stream. And so he's like, "Oh, well, they have free will. It's the universe in a microcosm. They can choose what to do." And then Azrael says, "Oh, they're going to kill each other." He's like, "No, miraculous things will happen and everybody will survive." Azrael's like, deep down, I always knew you were nice. And this is one of my favorite scenes. Like, Crowley just takes him and slams him up against the wall. Says, "Don't ever call me nice. Nice is a 4-letter word." I absolutely love that. I thought it was brilliant. Okay, so with this light right in my face, it is too bright in here. So the sunglasses are going back on. Yes, Johnny's going to call me a vampire, and I'm fine with it. And then they come across Sister Mary Loquacious, and hey, the nunnery's been shut down for 11 years. But she recognizes Crowley right away. And Crowley recognizes her, and then he snaps, literally, and puts her into that headspace where he can just question her and ask her whatever. And Azrael's like, "Oh, hey, didn't need to do that. We could have just asked her a question." He said, "Oh, yeah, we're two occult supernatural beings, and we're just asking, where the fuck is the Antichrist?" Like, the play between them is so well done. Like, I almost want to say it's done even better than it is in the books, in the book, and that's really hard to say. But and she's like, "Yeah, we kept great records." "Well, can we see them?" "No, they're all gone because the nunnery was burnt down." And this is what I was getting to before. It's hilarious that 15 minutes ago, Azrael's talking about how evil in its own acts creates the seeds of its own destruction, and Haster just superfluously deciding to burn down the nunnery because its purpose had been completed. Like, it is what's keeping them from being able to do this, which I wouldn't call probably evil, and I wouldn't really call Azrael good, but they're very human entities. And then we flash back to Anathema, who, by the way, yes, once again, Daisy. Oh, yes, and Daisy brings up, yes, he had nice little toesy woesies because he didn't have hoofsy woofsies. But Daisy brought up calling her an attractive young lady is an understatement. Yes, you are right. Adria Jonah is absolutely freaking gorgeous, and yeah, Anathema's pretty attractive. Sorry, I keep that's like the second time I've said that. I apologize, but yeah, she hit all my pretty buttons. But it's funny because we go back to the voice of God, and God says that most books say that witches work naked. That's because most books are written by men, and it says it all right there. I think that's such a good line that describes the whole dichotomy that you have in most civilizations about the people in power and what they say about people who aren't in power, and so undercurrent psychology about what people think is actually I could go on for this about 2 or 3 hours. But so you have her, and she's still trying. Now she's using a dowsing bell, I believe it was, and still can't find the. Still can't find it because she's like literally right there. I mean, she literally walked past him and talked to him, and didn't even realize it because he was too normal. It's a funny thing. Everybody's expecting the Antichrist, creator of chaos, doomer of souls, eater of worlds, to be like this horrible whatever. And no, he's just like a normal kid. It's one of the things that makes this so great. He's just a normal kid. It's one of the things I've always loved about this, no matter how many times I've read it and on watching this show. But so she gives up. She's like, screw it, I'm going home. Yeah, this isn't working. She's riding her bike down the hill, which, by the way, if anybody noticed, they actually use some of the same angles and views and shots from The Wizard of Oz. When, I can't remember her fucking name, but the woman who becomes the Witch of the West, when she's riding her bike, they use some of the same exact shots, and I thought that was freaking brilliant. She even has the basket on the front and everything. And then she plows into Crowley's car, and Azrael's like, "Oh, you hit somebody." He's like, "No, somebody hit me." And then, of course, being the nice person that he is, Crowley or Azrael, gets out of the car. Let there be light. And she's like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, "Margaret Hamilton, thank you, Julianne." And he's like, "Let there be darkness," because she's like, "I think I hurt my head." And Azrael, who didn't want to get a paint stain off of his jacket, goes ahead and mends bones. I think it really tells you something about him and his character. And then, fixes her bike, gets her in there. And there are all these small miracles. All these small miracles are going on. But she's probably concussed. I mean, I've had a few concussions in my life. I actually was on an episode of Silent John's with a concussion, and that was so messed up. But I rewatched it, and I didn't sound as dumb as I thought I did. But Johnny, you're so naughty. Make me lose my train of thought. All these small miracles they get away with because she's like, oh, I just ran into a car with my freaking bike. But then she like catches things. She's like, my bike didn't have gears. And Azrael's like, shit, I fixed it too well. But they did it okay. And then, they get her home. Yeah, Azrael kind of shoehorns probably into taking her to her house. And she, talks to her mom. I'm not a kid. Talking about how she's trying to look for Adam. And her mom's like, hey, the clues are all in the book. And then she realizes she lost the book. And the book is a pretty big deal. I mean, God told us 45 minutes ago that this is the only book of prophecy that it was ever actually 100% correct and accurate. As long as you know what you're reading. And she's like, shit, I gotta go, Mom. And she runs outside and realizes the book's gone. Then we flashed back to Crawley and Aziraphale. And they're sitting in a diner. And did anybody else notice? Please, I would like to know. Aziraphale, who we've established last week, is a foodie, is eating. And Crawley doesn't. He just sits there and watches them eat. Doesn't eat. Like it's like something he doesn't care about. And it for me, it was something I don't think I caught until my second or third watch through. But he doesn't eat because it's just like something he doesn't give a shit about. It's like I don't need to. Kind of like Gabriel when he's talking about material objects and why do you eat this and so forth. Like probably it just doesn't even occur to him. It's like, why would I eat? Why would I give a shit? He drinks though, which, as we all know, I agree with. Wine is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. But so Aziraphale calls out, hey, what? Maybe we could have other humans look for them. And Crowley's like, that's stupid. And Aziraphale, this is the first time Aziraphale gets sassy. Sasa, if you're still there, he got like sassy. Because he's like, you got any better ideas? Like, we've never seen Aziraphale get like sassy before. And it was kind of funny. He's like, hey, yeah, you're the demon and I'm the angel, but you know what? I'm going to call you out when I have the only idea, and it might not be a good one, but it's better than your not idea. Oh, okay. Everyone says that he was drinking coffee, which I could see. We all have our vices, and if you're going to be the demon who tempted Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden, then yeah, you probably have a vice or two. Like, was it pink and white angel cake? I am not sure, Julianne. I'm gonna have to rewatch that again now, just to see the cake. But yeah, I love that Aziraphale, kind of shows his teeth. He's like, hey, you got any better ideas? You got anything better? Or you're gonna sit here and sulk because we can't fix anything. And then it flashes to Adam's house, and Adam found a dog last week, and it shows Adam's parents, and they're talking, and she's like, "Why'd you let him keep the dog?" And he's like, "Because he looked at him, and it looked at him, and and she's like, "Oh, you're a softie, so don't call me that." It's funny. We went on for quite some time last week about how Adam's father's like kind of this almost ridiculous like 50s dad, and he's like, "Don't call me a softie," so forth, which was funny. But then he's like, "Oh, but the dog's outside. I told him he had to keep it outside." No, Daisy, actually, he eats sushi too. Sushi is established as son. I actually love that scene, which once again had John Hamm in it. John Hamm kicks ass. But, so mom goes to check on him, and he's faking sleep, and the dog's under the bed. And then the minute mom's done checking on him, he asks the dog up and, cuddles with the dog. And she's like, "Oh, he's so precious when he's asleep." And the dad's like, "When he's asleep." And then it shows that he's having dreams. And we don't really see what those dreams are, but there's some pretty foreboding music and everything going on. So, yeah, I wonder what's going to happen there. Like I said, this is spoiler free, so as someone who's read the books, I'm not going to talk about all of that. But I know most of you have binged it, but hey, let me put on the illusion of not having done so. Which I have not binged the show. Like I said, I've only watched these first 2 episodes. I'm watching the third tonight, right after the Stanley Cup final. We go back to Azrael and Crawley, and they're talking about Crawley's giving Azrael a ride home, and Azrael puts out the information that he has a network of human agents. And then Crawley's like, "Oh, hey, I have the same thing. I also have a network of human agents." And Azrael's like, "Oh, do you think we should try and make them work with each other?" And Crawley's like, "No, because mine aren't very professional. They aren't very subtle. They're, Azrael's like, "Yeah, mine are kind of that way too." Stick a pin in that. And then he finally remembers ducks, or what water rolls off of. And then he's letting Azrael out of the car, and he says, "Oh yeah, ducks. That's what water rolls off of." And Azrael's like, "Oh yeah, well, except more." And then he looks in the back seat. He notices a book, and being a bibliophile, I would too. But this is a very particular book that he said nobody has a copy of, and it is the Nice and Accurate Prophecies of Agnes Nutter. And he's like, "Oh, hey, that girl must have dropped this." And Crowley's like, "Well, I'm not going to get into returning that, because that's like a good deed, and that's what your lot do." Which I thought was absolutely hilarious. And so he's like, "Oh yeah, hey, okay, cool, gotta go." And Crowley calls him out on the Velvet Underground thing. If you line up every person in the world, not one of them is going to call the Velvet Underground bebop, which I thought was just absolutely brilliant. I love that line, probably because I'm a huge Velvet Underground fan, but yeah, I just thought it was freaking awesome. And Azraphale's not even paying attention. He's into the book. He's like, yeah, well, okay, bye. See you later. Tickety two. And Crowd's like, tickety two, what the fuck's that mean? And then they go into Azraphale's bookshop, and we find out that he collects books of prophecies, particularly first editions. Oh, good night, Daisy. And I will not forget to lube my robots. Thank you for stopping by. So he collects first editions. He has all these different prophets, their books. He has a Nostradamus copy signed by Nostradamus. He even has the Gospel of Saint John of Patmos. No, not the God. Yeah, no, the Revelation of the Apocalypse to Saint John of Patmos, the Divine. Original copy of the scroll, which kind of figures into the whole story because it was the best-selling prophecy of all time. It's the Book of Revelation, and he opens up the Agnes Nutter book, and it's open thine eyes, and goes on. Your cocoa's growing cold. And he's like, "What? Oh my holy gosh!" And realizes he's like, "Could it be that simple?" Because in the Book of Revelation it says, know the name and know his number, and it will be 636. And he's like, it can't be that simple. But then he dials the area code for Tadfield because everybody knows the kid's somewhere in Tadfield. And then 666, and Adam's dad answers the phone. Oh, sorry, right number. Right after he hears the beast shall stand on its hind legs, which is the kid playing with his freaking dog. But there's some actuality there. It's the whole thing about prediction and prophecy. Yes, Juliana loved the cup too. So that's how the episode ends. He realizes he knows exactly where the Antichrist is. Where are we going to go from here? I'm going to put you fine folks on hold for just a second because I have to get up for a moment. I would love it if you threw out any questions, thoughts, ideas, or anything you had about this episode, and I will be back in just a moment. Once again, I'm sorry you just have to deal with me. You don't get to see Amy tonight. I know I'm a poor substitute, but I've done my best. Hear me fart? What the fuck are you talking about, Johnny? Okay, so does anybody have any thoughts about this episode? Oh, Lady Lordaine, please take care of yourself. Yes, our thoughts and prayers are with you, of course. Um, Let us know if there's anything we can do. Johnny's just making shit up. So, anybody have any thoughts about this episode? Give me a moment or two. Beryl and Josh, yes, I think it's great that you're spacing things out too. Lady Lordaine, yes, all of our love is with you. Uh, okay, well, I guess we're going to go ahead and end this stream since nobody has any questions or anything. Please come back next week. Amy should be here. In the meantime, I'm kind of on a holiday right now, but there might be a video up on Sunday. It'll just be a wee little thing, but it will be some music that I'd like to share with people. I had a few ideas. Also, I think Johnny and I are doing something next week. I believe so. I'm not sure. I sign up for things and then get reminded of them. This Friday night, we will be on Silent John's talking about the season 2 finale, which is an awesome episode and is really going to F with your head. So if you're following Silent John's and following Battlestar Galactica, then please come out because we'd love to see you there. Thank you all for coming out today, and I hope to see you again soon. In the meantime, please believe.